afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Toledo Rotary June 27th meeting, the last one of this Rotary year. If you got a cell phone with you, take it out, turn it off. Thank you. We lost a very long time member, Scott Fry, recently. Guess I should move back. Scott became a member in 1986, and I swear I've known him since 92, and I don't think he ever aged a day. He always looked the same. But he was president and CEO of the Hospital Council of Northwest Ohio for 37 years, and we miss Scott, and we wish his family and his wife well. If we could just take a moment of silence, please. Thank you. Next, I would like to invite Deb Monaghan and Joe Habib up to deliver a reflection and to lead us in the pledge. So if you both come up. Thanks for coming today, Deb.
Thank you. Dear God, you created balance, the night to follow the day, the sea to touch the earth, all the wonderful animals, fish, and birds. You are the great creator of variety and diversity. Thank you that you made us all to be unique and reflect your love. God, help us to love each other fervently, grow our love so deeply that it is able and willing to overcome and forgive a multitude of misgivings. We acknowledge that you have given each of us spiritual gifts. Help us to put our own needs aside and use those gifts to serve one another well. Let us keep in mind service above self. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Deb. Thank you, Joe. And thanks, both of you, for coming today. You haven't been here in a while, so hopefully we'll see you more often. We hope to see all of you more often. I would also like to thank our monthly sponsor, Hartman Bogan Financial Planning, and Donna's here somewhere in the room. Oh, there she is. So thank you, Donna. Appreciate it. Do we have any visiting Rotarians or guests? And if we do, could you come to the mic and introduce your guest?
Good morning. I would like to introduce Stuart James. Stuart is the new executive director of the Ability Center.
Welcome, Stuart.
Not on. President Bob, good job. You survived the full year of Rotary. Congratulations.
I got about 4 days. I haven't made it
about 4
yet.
days, not yet? Okay, almost over. I'd like to introduce Pastor Cedric Brock as my guest today. He is the pastor of Mount Nebo Baptist Church and a ombudsman with Toledo Public Schools and the president of the Interministerial Alliance. Please thank him for being here.
Pastor Cedric. All right. Next, I would like to have Murph come up and give us a foundation update. Gary Murphy, in case some of you don't know him by Murph, but he doesn't answer to Gary, I don't think. Oh, I didn't know you were coming. And our foundation chair, Mary Mancini.
When I was asked to chair the annual campaign, I wondered, why me? In the past, we've had important and influential members handle this task, like Tom Backoff, Tom and John Romer, Bob Savage, for example. Why me? As is my normal response, I said to myself, I'll do my best to accomplish this task since so many people are worthy and needy groups that are counting on us. With your help and some very generous assistance from two great Rotarians who have matched our gifts, I hopefully have met my duties as your chairman. I'm very happy to announce that we have bettered my announced goal of $80,000 to the tune of $131,053. It wasn't me that did it, it was you. I thank you for your assistance in making this possible, as many 501c3s will be grateful to you for many years to come. I am happy to have been of service to our great club, and thank you for making Rotary look good again.
There is no one that embodies Rotary more than Murph. I think we all agree on that. And I just want to make sure that we give him a real big round of applause. Thank you so much. Great.
It's not up to Cindy. Thanks, Murph. Thanks, Mary, and thanks, Foundation, and especially thanks to all of our members who have donated. We will do a lot of good things with those funds. I would like to remind everybody, you should have gotten an invoice for your dues, and hopefully you will get those paid, or talk to Jackie as soon as possible, because if we don't have some agreement or dues paid, we will be dropping you from the roster until we get some sort of agreement. And one of the reasons we do that now is because if you're on the rolls July 1st, then we automatically have to pay Rotary International and district dues, which is about $150. So if you don't renew, and we don't know you're going to, then we lose that money because the club has to pay that one way or the other if you're on the roster. So just a reminder, remember to sign up for committees. We're into a new year. Everything will be wiped clean. I know Cindy has got quite a few committee chairs. I believe she's looking for a chair for international services. So if we got a volunteer out there, that would be helpful. Let me see. Again, as I said, this is my last official meeting as president. So the next meeting is going to be in 2 weeks, July 11th, and that's when we do our official changing of the guard. So I would like to thank my AV crew, did a great job. Walt for making sure that we all show up. Program committee, all the committee chairs and committee members. The board, my board has been the best of all time. And the members and all the things that you do for Rotary. So try to keep coming to meetings. Eventually, we'll probably move from this spot, but we'll just see what happens in the new year. So next, I would like to introduce Brian Reed, and Brian will introduce our speaker, Greg Cooper.
Thank you, Bob. Welcome, fellow Rotarians. I just want to thank Bob Harold, first of all. He couldn't be here today, but he facilitated the program and invited our guest, Greg Cooper. So I didn't have anything to do with it. In fact, when I mentioned to my wife that I was going to make this introduction, she said, "You don't know anything about farming or farms," which is very true growing up in the city. So Greg Cooper is the general manager of Cooper Farms. It's a third generation with some fourth generation employees now. Family-owned business located in Oakwood, which I guess there's a couple of Oakwoods, but this would be the very small Oakwood just south of Defiance. Company dates back to pre-World War II, and it's a small town turkey farm that has grown to become a major player in the agricultural industry. Highly diversified, doing a lot more now than just raising turkeys, hogs, and laying hens. They have a fantastic and very fascinating website with a lot of history. I would encourage everyone to read that if you haven't already. I won't really take anything away from Greg's presentation, so I'll just quickly mention a couple of personal notes that he shared. Greg says his wife owns 25 horses, and he owns a mule. His pet peeve is people being inconsiderate of others' time. He really enjoys going on camping trips, and there are 8 Eagle Scouts within his family. So with that, I am very pleased to welcome Greg Cooper. Thank you.
Well, thanks for letting me come and talk about Cooper Farms today. Talk a little bit about the history and what we do, the animals we have, and so forth. And then, talk about with those animals, they provide or they produce a lot of manure. That affects where the Auglaize River runs right through Oakwood, and it hits the Maumee and Defiance, and then comes right here through Toledo. So it affects us all. So to get started, we started in 1938. Grandpa did. So back before the war, people would do things like they might have cows, and they'd produce milk, and they'd sell that milk for extra cash. Or they'd have eggs, and they'd sell the eggs for extra cash. Well, Grandpa happened to be good at raising turkeys, right? So he raised turkeys for extra cash. So, and I think it's a little bit interesting. Grandma's got a little bit of a lean going on, so I don't know if he forgot to brush his teeth or was bad mouth in her sugar cream pie. So, this is the second generation. So my Uncle Gary, my Aunt Diane, and Dad, or Jim Cooper, he's on the right. They sent me a picture of him yesterday. He was water skiing on Lake James over in Indiana. So my 80-year-old dad is still pretty active in the business. So they're all three very active in leadership with Cooper Farms. So the top right picture is the family. So there's 18 stockholders within Cooper Farms. Of the third generation, I'm third generation, there's 13 cousins, and 9 of them are currently working for the company. And then when it comes to the fourth generation, we've got about 8 active. So we're starting to get some of the 8th or the 4th generation working for the company. So my wife and daughter also work for the company. My daughter gathers eggs at one of the breeder farms, and my wife hauls corn for one of our contract turkey breeding farms. So we're all active with the business. Then the bottom right picture, that's a blend of our leadership. So it's both family and outside talent or people. So kind of interesting. A lot of the people in that leadership group are all local. They came up through the system. You guys are probably, Toledo's a nice city. You get over in west central Ohio, it's pretty flat. It's pretty boring. There's not a whole lot going on, so it's pretty hard to draw talent from the outside. So we tend to develop our talent from within. So we do try to recruit from the outside, but a lot of those people have been here for a long time. So here you can see this is where we're located at. So Oakwood is where we started. That is the corporate office. That's where all the reproduction's at. So that's where our breeding turkeys are at. That's where our sow farms are at. That's where one of our hatcheries are at. We have one feed mill. That is the location that I am the general manager over, or I run that facility. So in Oakwood, we produce baby pigs, wean pigs, and we produce poults, or baby turkeys. We take the baby pigs and the toms of the turkeys, and we take them down to Fort Recovery. That's in Mercer County, and that's where our grow out is at. So that's where we have our feed mills and a lot of our contract farms. We raise those animals to about a 49-pound turkey or a 290-pound hog, and then When it comes to turkeys, we're pretty well fully integrated. So that means we've got the hatchery, we've got the grow out I just talked about. St. Henry is also in Mercer County, and that's where we harvest those toms. We debone them. We do all toms. We don't do any hens. And then we take the breast meat from our St. Henry facility. It goes to Van Wert, and that's where our ready-to-eat plant is at, where we do like deli products and so forth. So I have some slides on that. And then there's also a picture of Cold Water up there. So Cold Water is a hog processing plant. It's the Clemens Food Group out of Philadelphia. They're a family-owned business similar to us. They've been in business for like 125 years. They're on their 6th or 7th or 8th generation of family members. I don't remember. But anyways, we're partners with another family that processes our hogs. So we don't own that facility, but that's where all of our hogs go to be harvested. So within Cooper Farms, you know, we do turkeys, we do pigs, and we do egg layers. We started out with the turkeys, you know, like I said, in 1938, and then over time, we got into the pigs and we got into the egg layers, and I'll talk about that here more. So to run Cooper Farms, it takes about 2,400 team members amongst those 4 locations. So I've got about 420 in my location. Obviously, the 2 biggest places that have the most people would be our processing plants in St. Henry and in Van Wert. This does not include contract farmers, which I'll talk about here in a little bit as well. So on the turkeys, we hatch 15 million poults a year. So to hatch 15 million poults, we have to set or incubate about 18 million eggs. So not every egg is fertile, and not every fertile egg is going to hatch necessarily. So it takes about 18 million eggs to produce 15 million poults. We have approximately 200,000 breeders, turkey breeders. We have 9 company-owned farms that produce the eggs, and we have 1 independent turkey breeder who produces eggs for us. We'll start about 7 million tom turkeys a year, and we will process about 25,000 turkeys a day in our St. Henry processing plant. 5 days a week. You know, we'll take 4th of July off and Labor Day, but, you know, Thanksgiving and those kinds of things, Christmas, but, so it's right at 7 million turkeys a year. On the turkeys, sorry, we're about, when it comes to ranking, we're the top 10 in the nation, so like number 8 or something like that, but like dad says, ranking doesn't make you any money, so it's no good being number 1 and not making money, so he'd rather be number 8 and make some money. So when it comes to the hogs, we've got about 34,000 sows. We have 8 company-owned sow farms where we produce these baby pigs, and we have 2 independent folks or family farms that produce baby pigs for us. It shows there we market about 950,000 pigs, which all go to that Clemens plant, and it's about 250 million pounds of pork a year. So on the table eggs, so the table eggs are all down in the Fort Recovery location. We've got about 5.8 million layers, 7.35 million pullets. So a pullet is a chicken that has never laid an egg. So it doesn't become a hen or a chicken until it lays its first egg. So we call them pullets. We'll produce about 155 million dozen a year, and that's a brown chicken there. So we produce brown eggs, we produce white eggs, we produce cage-free eggs, we produce the traditional in-caged eggs. You know, kind of depends on what the customer wants. On the grain side, so it takes a lot of feed to feed all of those animals. So we use about 19 million bushels a year. So 19 million is a big number, you know. So we don't raise all that corn ourselves, right? So that would take, if you were to average about 180 bushel per acre, it would take about 105,000 acres of ground to produce that much corn. We don't own 105,000 acres. We don't even grain farm anymore. We stopped grain farming back in the 80s. So we buy all of our grain from local farmers. So we love to buy it out of the field if we can, and then after that we get it from the elevators and so forth. So 19 million bushels. So if you were to take a football field, right, 100 yards long, 50 yards wide, and if you were to take that 19 million bushels and put it into a column, how high would that column of corn need to be 19 million bushels? So the Fifth Third Center, which is the tallest building in Fort Wayne, right besides the Cleveland Cliffs furnace, the Fifth Third Center, according to Siri anyways, is 411 feet tall, all right, in Toledo. That column of corn would be 525 feet tall. So just kind of give you a visual of how much corn that is. Just say 19 million bushels and, so kind of give you a visual. Of course, I'm sure the base of the Fifth Third building is a lot bigger than a football field, but we have 5 feed mills that produce this feed. One in Paulding County, and then 3 of them are in Mercer County, and 1 is down in Darke County. So, and we're producing about 1 million tons of feed a year. So, we're committed to animal care. So, like I tell people, the animals are our livelihood. So if the animals, if they're sick, they're not going to produce very well. It's not in our best interest to abuse those animals, right? Because they pay the bills. So that's our living. So we've got a 0 tolerance for animal abuse. If there's somebody out there who's kicking an animal or whatever it might be, when it comes to biosecurity, animal abuse, sexual harassment, pretty much you're out the door, 0 tolerance. So, that's our livelihood. That's how we make our money, is these animals. So we have to take care of them. So controlled atmosphere stunning. This is at our St. Henry processing plant, and this is stunning would be the procedure you do to the animal before you would bleed it out or harvest it. Okay. So the way that we used to do it is we would hang these turkeys on shackles. They would be hanging upside down, and their head would drag across, essentially ladder, an inverted ladder that had electricity in it. All right, so you could about imagine it wasn't a very nice process for the people trying to hang the turkeys or for the turkeys. So in 2006, we installed this system. So the back end of this truck, that's full of turkeys. All right, this truck pulls in, there's baffles that press onto the side of the truck. It injects CO2, it basically asphyxiates the turkey, right? So that way when you're pulling a turkey out of the crate, you're not pulling out a live bird, you're pulling out an unconscious bird, right? You hang it on the shackle, and it's just, we feel it's more humane for the bird as opposed to doing it the old method. So we've been doing it, and it also helps with the meat quality. The way the animal was handled prior, you could about imagine if it was being shocked, it's going to do some flapping and so forth, and it's breaking blood vessels in the shoulders. So this is a better process. Temple Grandin, she's kind of an industry expert on animal welfare and so forth. So she come in and looked at our process and approved it. So it's been a good deal for us. So I commented on how many employees we have. We have about 2,400 employees, but on the reproduction side, we own the turkey breeders, we own the sows, besides the independent farms I talked about a little bit. On the market side, we don't own any of those barns. So, we found it in our business model, if we were to own all the buildings and all the land to produce all those animals I just told you about, you can imagine that would be an incredible amount of buildings and an incredible amount of land and a lot more employees. So we use local farmers. So basically the way it works is they'll come to us, they want to build a turkey barn or a hog barn or a chicken barn. They provide the land, they build the building, they provide the labor to take care of the animals, and then we provide the animal, the moving to and from that farm. We provide the feed, medications, vaccinations, service, all that kind of stuff, and then they get paid. Basically, it's based off of an animal space is how it works. So another reason why we use contract farmers as opposed to like company owned is if we have an employee who is running a farm, you know, and they're making $15 or $20 an hour, they get paid the same no matter how that farm performs. You know, if it performs very poorly, they get the same amount of money. If they perform very well, they get the same amount of money. The contract farmer, you know, they've got a little bit of skin in the game because it's based off how well those animals, you know, there's a base pay and then there's bonuses for livability and feed conversion and bird health and so forth. So we've just found it better to have, we feel, family farms as opposed to owning all the facilities ourselves. So these are where our farms are located. So West Central Ohio and Eastern Indiana. So heavily concentrated in Darke County, Mercer County. That's where a lot of our grow out is at. Like that top one, the 5 and the 1, those would be pig farms. So when we became partners with Clemens Food Group, we had a big push to build more buildings to the north because, you know, we're closer to our processing plant, so it makes sense, you know, your trucking and so forth is going to be a lot cheaper if you build them closer to your processing plant. So at that Van Wert facility, that's a ready to eat. So what that means is when that product leaves that plant, it needs no further heat preparation, right? You can take it out of the package and you can eat it. So we do about 94 million pounds. The far right picture would be a ready-to-eat product. The middle picture is turkey burgers. We don't do cooked turkey burgers. We do raw turkey burgers. So in that plant, we also do clean room slicing. So not only do we do bulk deli, we call it clean room slicing. The employees going in there, it's basically like almost like an operating room. They're putting on, you know, we call them clean room suits, gloves, masks, hairnets, and all that kind of stuff. The air is filtered, you know, because the problem with, you know, sliced product is there's a lot of surface area, obviously. So, you know, you could hide bacteria in that stack of meat pretty easy. And the last thing that we want to do is get somebody sick because we contaminated, you know, some ready-to-eat product. And we'll do about 15 million pounds of turkey, ham, and chicken, broiler chicken or chicken breasts. So this right here, we call this high pressure pasteurization. So we will put our sliced product in these green tubes you can see there, and it goes into this vessel, and there's plugs that plug into either end, and then I'll start filling it full of water. And it creates pressure, and it gets to it gets to 86,000 PSI in that package. And basically, we will gas flush those packages. At that pressure, that gas turns into a liquid. So it's very high pressure. And the interesting thing is, it's not 87,000 PSI like pressing down. It's not like stepping on a grape, right? And you explode the grape. It's pressure from all sides. So basically, if there's any bacteria in that package, it's been denatured or killed. So to kind of put that as a comparison, the Mariana Trench off the coast of Japan is the deepest part of the ocean, right? That's 36,000 feet deep, about 6.8 miles, and it's about a little over 15,000 PSI at the bottom of the Mariana Trench, and we're doing 86,000 PSI. So I got to always do comparisons for myself. What's that mean? 86,000 PSI. So the nice thing about high pressure pasteurization, so we're worried about food safety. We're worried about getting people sick. You can do that. You know, you can do it with high pressure pasteurization. You can do it with surface pasteurization, getting the top of the product warm and killing any bacteria or hot. You can do it by adding chemicals to your products, right? So if you do high pressure pasteurization, you can minimize or eliminate the chemicals that you have to put into those products for food safety. So essentially, you can create a safer or a cleaner food label. So bulk deli, that is a lot of what we do at the Van Wert plant. We also do sliced products. There's a sample. The top one is turkey, middle one's ham, bottom one is chicken. So that is It's Private Selections, that's a Kroger brand. So it's interesting, if you can, I don't know if you can see my pointer right there, that little circle is, that's called the inspection legend. So every USDA inspected plant in the US is gonna have an inspection legend. So those legends have a unique number in there. That number for our plant is 18213. So if you're wondering if there's a product in the store and if it was made in Vanwood, Ohio, if it has that 18213, we made it. So, we do primarily co-pack. So we do a little bit of Cooper Farms label, but it's a very small amount, kind of like going back to the contract farmers, right, as opposed to company-owned. We're not a Butterball, we're not a Genio, we're not a Cargill with the honeysuckle. We don't have a national brand. So we found it better to co-pack for customers, so we're producing the product for them as opposed to competing against them, if that makes sense. So some of our, you guys, I'm sure Kroger's in town, Meijer, those are two very big customers. Not all of these are ready-to-eat customers, like, we're selling essentially offal to a pet food plant, and they're making it into dog food or pet treats. We do the turkey burgers, that would be a raw product. Columbus is out of San Francisco, and we do a lot of sliced product. They go into Costco, they go into Trader Joe's. So a few examples of who some of our customers are. On the egg side, oops. These are some of our retail shell eggs. So I said we produce 125 million dozen. These are some of our customers that we provide eggs to. A lot of them go out west to California. That Eggs Unlimited is a broker. As we get bigger in the egg industry, we're starting to go direct with customers as opposed to having brokers, which is our direction or our goal. So, and as we've gotten bigger, we've been able to do that. So some examples of where some of our egg products are. We also have a breaking plant in Fort Recovery, Ohio, so a breaking plant is we take the eggs, the chicken eggs, and we will break or crack that egg, and then we can separate the egg or the white and the yolk. All right, so if you want a truckload of whites, we can give you that. If you want a truckload of yolks, we can give you that. If you want it blended, we can give you that. If you want it pasteurized, we can pasteurize it. You want it in a 5-pound package or a 6,000-gallon tanker truck, whatever you want, we can blend. So we'll do pre-blends for a lot of these customers. Like maybe we pasteurize it so the shelf life is longer, and then they want salt added to it, or they want sugar or some kind of ingredient. We can do pre-blends for them, and then send that on its way. So we'll do about 38 million pounds of liquid egg a year. These would be brownies, bread. I can't remember which one. One of these customers does all the bread for Walmart in their bakery. Pies, whatever takes eggs. So, caring for our environment. So if you guys have been in Western Ohio, there's about 325 wind turbines in Western Ohio. When they started putting those turbines in about 10 years ago, we got to looking at it and we thought, well, maybe there's something to this. So at our Van Wert plant, we also put in 3 of these turbines that feed directly to our processing plant. So it'll produce and it does produce 75% of the energy that we need, right? So they're working out very well. The only kind of downfall of them is, so the biggest usage of electricity at that processing plant is refrigeration, right? We have to keep that plant 40 degrees or less. Problem with Northwest Ohio is the wind blows in the winter and not in the summer so much. So we would rather have it blow harder in the summer, but it works well. Whatever we generate and don't use goes on the grid. We also have one of our turkey farms that has solar panels, and it cut the bill in about half. So we haven't put more solar panels in yet. Something we've kind of considered, but so looking out for trying to use some green energy. Recycling, a big focus on recycling, within our company. The easy stuff is the plastic, paper, aluminum, and those kinds of things. When you get into some of the plastics and netting and so forth at our ready-to-eat plant, that gets a little bit more difficult, but a big focus on recycling. So we're not all about just producing animals and, making meat, so we do have about 222 acres of filter strips around our company-owned farms. Dad likes his trees, so we've, got 571 acres of woods. He has orchards in California, and then he has some orchards in Florida, where he does citrus, and then out in California he does cherries, walnuts, and almonds. And it's almost an act of Congress to get him to cut down a tree. So he really likes his trees. Auditing, it kind of goes back to animal care. Auditing, we have internal auditors go out and look at biosecurity. So biosecurity is basically making sure that we're not getting those animals sick, preventing any diseases from coming onto that farm. So we've got bait stations around the farm to prevent rodents. We don't want bird nests up in the soffits or the curtain pockets. We don't want feed on the feed pad because it's directing or, could attract rodents. All of our reproduction facilities, which would be the turkey breeders and the sow farms, are all shower in, shower out. So he's doing biosecurity audits, animal care, making sure there's not a nail hanging out of a wall that the turkey or the sow could, go by and get scraped. We're looking at, CO2 levels, ammonia levels, are all the fans working properly? Is the litter wet? Making sure they got good hot showers, they've got, towels to dry off and so forth. Just making sure we're doing things right on the farm. I've got an auditor that works for me. He gets on those farms at least 3 times a year, probably 4 times a year, unannounced. And he's got 3 pages, or actually it's not 3 pages, 3 forms that he fills out, had safety, production, and biosecurity. Making sure that we're doing those things to make sure our animals are healthy. We also do third-party audits as well. People will come in, and these are both in the plants and on the farms. So, and then process verification. So animal units. So we have a lot of animals, right? So a CAFO, so it's a concentrated animal feeding operation. And I don't know all the history on it, but back in the day, they wanted to come up with some standards. So they decided they said that a cow or a steer would be 1 unit and 1,000 pounds. That was kind of the unit. So to translate that, it was 2,400 baby pigs, 55,000 turkeys. There's standards for dairy, and there's standards for breeders or layers, and there's standards for ducks. I don't remember what those are, but in our case, it would be 55,000 turkeys, or it'd be 2,400 pigs or sows. So, and like I said, so we're right in the Maumee watershed, Lake Erie watershed, right? So we have all those farms, a lot of those farms. Some of them, or some of that water goes to the Ohio River. Some of that water goes right through Toledo. So it's on everybody's radar. So again, concentrated animal feeding unit or operation. I'm sorry. When is the permit required? So if we have 2,400 pigs or more, we're required to be permitted. So we have all of our sow farms are permitted because we hit that requirement. On our market pigs, we've got about 65% of our market pigs are permitted. Not all of them are, obviously. If they're under that threshold, they don't have to be. We encourage them to be permitted. An ODA inspector will be on that farm, once or twice a year. It kind of keeps them on their toes. Some farmers, we have farmers that don't email. We have farmers that don't text, so when it comes to these permits, they're expensive, they cost like $15,000. There's a lot of paperwork and so forth. Some of these guys don't want to be permitted, you know, and if they're under that limit, you know, there's not much we can do about it. But we encourage them, you know, just to keep them on their toes, because we don't want the manure getting into the streams, right, any more than you guys do, because it's not right, you know, and it's tough on ag, right? You get questioned, so we're paying attention to this stuff. So on our sow farms are we have lagoons where all the wastewater is stored, okay? So from about June to whenever it starts raining, we can irrigate that lagoon water on those fields. We make sure that there's a cover crop. You know, we're staying so far away from the streams and so forth. We're watching the weather. If there's a 50% chance of a 1/4 inch of rain in the 24-hour period, we're not irrigating, right? Because we don't want that water getting in the tile. We've got slide gates on our tiles. We have a retired person, you know, that watches these irrigators whenever they run, right? They're documenting, you know, how far it moved for the day, how many gallons were applied. You know, we want them looking at that irrigator. That irrigator is pumping about 500 gallons a minute, right? So if something happens and it stops right there, you could have a puddle of water very quick, right? We don't want that to happen. The guys are going around checking the tile, making sure that there's nothing running into the creek. If there is, possibly, we got a slide gate where we can stop it, right? So it's not going into the creek. So we take it very seriously. If we don't have a person watching the irrigator, we're not irrigating. It's pretty plain and simple. You know, big is not bad. So we're a pretty good sized family-owned farm, right? But we have a lot of resources as well, a lot of internal resources. We have guys that work on these permits. We have internal auditors, you know, so we have a very good support staff. And this is just an example of a structure that they could use to control the wastewater. You know, some important issues with, you know, the industry. So Prop 12 is what California passed. So Prop 12 is all the sows have to be cage-free, or not cage-free. They have to be in pen gestation. They need 24 square feet to be of 24 square feet of room in their gestation pens. Prop 12 also has to do with chickens. If you're going to sell eggs into California, they have to be cage-free. So we're in the process of building about a 4 million chicken layer complex that's all Prop 12 compliant, so we can sell eggs into California. We just converted one of our sow farms up by Bryan, Ohio, to be Prop 12 compliant to meet those 24 square feet per sow. Ohio law requires us to be pen gestation by 2024. They don't tell you how many square feet that sow is supposed to have. They just want them in pens. Prop 12 calls out 24 feet. So we will have all of our sow farms up to the Ohio standard by this year. We're doing our last farm right now as we speak, going from pen gestation or crate gestation to pen gestation. And then, you know, it's all customer preferences that drive these things. So, and lastly, you know, water treatment. So we have our St. Henry plant and we have our Van Wert plant. They're USDA inspected locations. We use a lot of water, right? Use a lot of water for chilling. We use a lot of water for sanitation, all right? We probably do 600,000 gallons a day at St. Henry and 200,000 gallons a day at Van Wert, right? So we've got DAF machines, we've got wastewater lagoons, aeration, so forth. You know, we have to meet certain limits before we can discharge that water into the waters of the state, right? So, so it's part of doing business. So, and that is the end of my presentation. Are there any questions?
But what I've heard as a rumor is that we haven't even seen the effects of inflation on our food yet. because a lot of these sows are still growing, all these cows are still growing and still eating. Can you reflect on that at all?
Yeah, we're the price of it. Look, price of everything's going up. So like right now, it's crazy. So one of the lean manufacturing processes is first in, first out, right? Or just on demand, right? You get stuff in as you need it. Things are getting so crazy out there. If you rely on just in time, we're not going to be running. So we went from trying to do the just in time to buying warehouse space so we can store some of these ingredients so we don't run out. And it's crazy. It's feed ingredients, it's spices, it's plastics. It just keeps coming at you. And then there's wages too, so we've had to stay competitive in the job market. We've had to increase our wages. I went by a sign today where Taco Bell is paying $17 an hour, right? So we have to keep up with Taco Bell, right? And that all goes to, those costs have to get passed along. Corn, is very high, right? Another thing is, there's this highly pathogenic avian influenza that was circulating around the U.S. this spring. As an industry, we lost 39 million birds, right? So it was like 30 million egg layers and 6 million turkeys, right? So people are gonna eat protein, right? So the prices of both of those proteins is very high. Turkey right now is $6.55 a pound, which is probably the highest it's ever been. Eggs are very high as well, right? So for Cooper Farms, that's we're selling those items. It's good for us, but it affects everybody, right? So.
Thanks for being here today. We appreciate it. So I just happened to read an article this week, and actually about a Thailand farmer who was feeding his chicken medical marijuana instead of, the usual antibiotics. And apparently it was like just as effective. They was only losing like 10% of his. So I would my question to you is whether or not there's alternatives to some of the antibiotics that are typical you use in your industry, or if you look into that much.
We do. One of the best. So we do. They call it NAE, no antibiotics ever, and we do those products. We do turkeys, and the best way to not have to use antibiotics is to keep them healthy, right? So a lot of times if we do an NAE flock, it's isolated, it's out by itself. There's not a lot of other animals out there. There are some ingredients out there that will help with salmonella and so forth. A lot of times we call it pixie dust. We'll test it to see if it's useful, and not very often. And we're not going to do medicinal marijuana in our.
Yeah. That's what I was going to say. Scott really wanted to know if you had a bunch of high chickens running around over there. Greg, thank you for coming today. You did a wonderful job. I was going to ask you some questions about CAFOs, but I think you've covered that really, really well. I will say that a few of us who have been doing a lot looking at manure, particularly over the last year, uses for manure and who's doing what with manure, have seen, we actually went out in the field and saw some application processes where it's subsurface application with some kind of experimental devices that have been rigged up by particularly a gentleman named Glenn Arnold, who's part of the Ohio State University's one of their expert extension field people. And you showed an irrigation system, so that's above ground, above surface application. Are you looking at subsurface?
We do, yep. So when we do our gilt developers, or anytime there's a pit underneath the animal holding that manure, we will incorporate it into the ground. Really don't like to just spray it on top of the ground, or if we do put it on top of the ground, we want to get it tilled in very quickly, right? So we don't have a rain, then it runs off. So we have done some incorporation with the liquid manure.
Great. And we'd love to have some conversations with you forward going. We're in communication with the Ohio Lake Erie Commission, and they've kind of asked us if we can kind of spearhead an opportunity for Rotary to become a two-way avenue of communication, both getting information out about what's going on, particularly with the H2 Ohio program, and then getting feedback back to them about what other areas people are looking for. And our district has a lot of rural clubs. We have 64 clubs total, and a lot of them are very rural, so we'd love to continue the conversation.
Absolutely. That was one of our big pushes, is to come to the Rotaries and, tell our story, Cooper Farms, and, so if you do hear about animal ag, at least you know a little about Cooper Farms and what we do.
I know there's some emerging technologies out there for processing animal manure and trying to reclaim the chemicals out of it. Have any of them approached you, and have you evaluated the value of that for your operation?
We have. We've had a couple of people. We've talked to them. One of the challenges with us is, like, on the contract farmers. Those contract farmers own that manure. That's theirs. So to have the volume of manure that you would need to have a payback, or to have it make sense, we don't have that. You know what I mean? Because the contractor has the manure, or owns the manure. On the farms that we own ourselves, we do have manure, but it's not the volume that we need. There's digesters, I can't remember off the top of my head, but we have had companies come in and talk to us about those processes.
Thanks, Greg. Could I have you come back up for just a second? You can learn a little bit more about Toledo with this book that we're going to present you, Historical Tales of Toledo. It's got some pretty interesting info.
Great.
And it's by one of our past presidents, Clint Mock. And also, we would like to make a donation to the Polio Plus Fund in your name.
Great. All right.
So thanks again.
Yes, thank you.
Very nice. Well, I learned a lot. It was very interesting. And I think it would be great if you can get out to some of the other Rotary clubs, because it's a good presentation. You present it well, and so thank you. Next meeting, we're not ready for that. We're ready for Chuck Mann. Chuck did sneak in here somewhere. I had to text Jackie during this meeting to make sure he was here.
Did you use any foul language? All right, I'm sorry. It's what they pay me to do, I can't. A man was driving along a rural road one day when he saw a three-legged chicken running down the road. He was amused enough to drive alongside it for a while and noticed the chicken was running at about 30 miles an hour. Pretty fast chicken, he thought. I wonder just how fast it can run. So he sped up, and the chicken did too. Well, we're now moving along the road at 45 miles an hour. He sped up again, and to my surprise, the chicken was still running ahead of me at 60 miles an hour. Suddenly, the chicken turned off the road and ran down a long driveway leading to a farmhouse. He followed the chicken to the house and saw a man in the yard with dozens of three-legged chickens. He called out to the farmer, "How did you get all these three-legged chickens?" The farmer replied, "Well, I breed them. You see, it's me, my wife, and my son living here, and we all like drumsticks. Since a chicken only has two legs, I started breeding this three-legged variety so we can all eat our favorite piece." "That's amazing," the stranger asked. How did they taste?" "Well, we don't rightly know. We haven't been able to catch one yet."
Something new for you to work on, Greg. All right. Thank you, Chuck. Next meeting is July 11th, so don't come here next week. It's a holiday. We also have, Jackie is going to be off next week, so don't call the Rotary office between the 4th and the 8th. And there's one committee meeting, and that would be membership right after this. If you go outside, take a right, it's room 10. And thank you so much for having me as your president this year. We're adjourned.
you.